The story of Pan's Labyrinth takes place in Spain in the summer of 1944, and it follows the little girl Ophelia. During the time period, Spain was in the early Franco's period. Her mother is Carmen, who is pregnant but grows ill during the story. Her stepfather is a cruel phalangist, Captain Fidel, who bashed in a guy's nose and shot him dead in such a brutal scene.
Me lo ha matado. Me lo ha matado. Asesino. Hijo de puta.
One day in the woods, Ophelia finds a weird creature which happens to be a fairy. The fairy comes to Ophelia one night, urging for her to follow it, which she does and is led to Fawn, a scary, weird-looking creature. Fawn has a promise to make of riches of eternity that would be given to Ophelia if she does what he asks. What he wants is three simple tasks to be done, and it's up to her for whether she would do it or not. She of course accepts the offer from Fawn. To help Olivia through her task, she's followed by three innocent little fairies that are meant to keep her on the right track and agenda. These fairies in the movie greatly symbolize as the innocence of a child as seen in every children's movie and book, such as Peter Pan for an example. Olivia, being a little girl who loves fairy tales, would have this love towards such things as the fairies. In Pan's Labyrinth, the fairies are meant to symbolize as Ophelia's innocence. During the dining room table scene, Ophelia is meant to get a dagger as part of her task. Once she's there, she sees tons of food laid on the table with the pale man sitting at the table. On one side of the table, there's children's shoes piled up in a little pile. On the wall, she sees images of the pale man killing and eating children. After getting the dagger needed, Ophelia begins to leave, but temptation gets the better of her, and she goes for a piece of fruit. The fairies try over and over to stop Ophelia, but aren't successful, and Ophelia ends up eating a grape. This disobedience does not go unpunished as the pale man awakens. The pale man puts his eyes back into his hands, allowing him to see, and he makes a move towards Ophelia. But the fairies try to hold him back, but they aren't that successful against the pale man. The fairies end up having their heads ripped off and eaten while they were alive in such a gruesome scene. The dining table scene was a really horrific scene as we saw the deaths of two innocent little fairies having their heads ripped off and their bodies eaten by the pale. The horrific scene with the fairies dying is such a devastating scene to watch, and it's such a horrific and graphic scene to watch. But the fairies' death do symbolize something more important, and it's the loss of child innocence. But it's not any child, it's Ophelia's innocence. Of course, she's gone through so much in the world. She has to deal with the loss of her father, the loss of her mother, and the war that's going on around her, and it's so hard for her just to be a normal child and to grow up as a normal child. No matter what's thrown at Ophelia, she keeps on trying to push forward to keep whatever little innocence she has left. Through fairy tales, she tries as hard as she can to keep that innocence. That's the whole reason why she even accepted Fawn's offer. The reason being, Fawn told her that she would end up being a fairy princess, and she loved the idea since she enjoyed fairy tales so much. No matter how much she wants to keep her innocence, and no matter how much she tries, there's always something that keeps on breaking and breaking at her innocence. And this scene honestly shows that Ophelia's really losing her child innocence, and she's trying to push forward and forward and forward to keep as much as she can. That's what ends up leading her to the final scene.